At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh.
Before we get started in today's show, I want to tell you about Stamps.com, longtime sponsor of the BS Report. It's quick, it's convenient. More importantly, it's really, really easy to use. You do not have to go to the post office anymore. You can just stay home. Make your own office, your personal post office. You can avoid lines. You can avoid just standing there as somebody mails some package, some 79-year-old lady. Who needs that? Make your own mailing and shipping from your house. Stamps.com. Put in the top right of the site, BS. You'll get a deal and a scale and a whole bunch of other things. It's a great product. You can buy and print official U.S. postage using your computer and printer. Stamps.com will give you a digital scale. It will automatically calculate the exact postage for any letter, any package. They'll even help you choose the best class of mail. Wow. Why go to the post office? Just give it to the postman. Stamps.com. Check it out.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, taping this on a Monday. Bill Don't Lie will be coming later in the week. We are moving it because we had a big fight weekend and a lot of talk. And weirdly, talk about somebody that wasn't even in the fight in Manny Pacquiao's entourage, Jimmy Kimmel. He is on the phone right now with Cousin Sal. They're both in his office on two separate phones because ESPN makes $6 billion and we cannot figure out how to have two guys on the phone at the same time. How are you?
Good. We literally are sitting right next to each other on two phones.
It's great. It's like 2008 all over again. All right. So first of all, you kept this a secret, which I was proud of. Right? Yeah.
Well, kind of. I guess we kept the official announcement a secret, and I wasn't sure it was going to happen. For those who didn't see it, when Manny was on our show, I asked if I could be his Justin Bieber, if I could be a part of his camp, and he said yes. And then after the show, they said, yeah, we'd like to do this. But I really thought that by fight time, somebody would have said, okay, no, this is ridiculous. This is a serious event, and this is not going to happen. And then I would be kind of pushed to the side, as I typically am. But sure enough, I was escorted from my seats, and they brought me back about 45 minutes before the fight and into a room where Manny's family was gathered, and then the police came in and cleared everyone out. The police said, "I'm going to ask everyone to leave right now, and then next time you will leave in handcuffs."
Wow!
And they limited it to 4 people because apparently it had to be an even number of people on each side for each camp, and I was one of the 4 people.
What? So it's you, Freddie Roach, and who was the other person?
His assistant trainer, his cut man, and me.
Wow. And where was Sal during all this? Just having a heart attack?
I was in my seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were in the seats. Jimmy got us there early. And
well, Jimmy's always early.
Of course. But we were in our seats probably like at 6. And our agent, James Baby Doll Dixon, was not happy. Took about 17 cigarette breaks between 6 and the third round.
Sal was very busy in his seat dumping popcorn and orange drink all over Dixon's seat.
Yeah, it had to be done.
You were there at 6 o'clock for a fight in Vegas?
All the celebrities were. No.
Listen, these tickets were very expensive. I wanted to see the undercard fights. My nightmare was that the fight's over in 40 seconds, and, we just flew out there and spent a fortune to see nothing. So I figured we'd see the undercard.
Is that why there were sad pictures of you on the internet just early in the fight surrounded by empty seats?
Yeah, that is.
Okay, all right.
That's part of the reason. The other part is that you didn't show up after saying you would.
No, I never said I would. I said I had to play it by ear. That's
yeah,
not
we
true.
definitely have to discuss this. This, to me, is more interesting than what I think.
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So,
right.
Can we talk about So, for about 2 weeks, you figured you had a real chance to be in Manny's entourage, and there were a lot of emails sent around back and forth about how you should dress. How did you eventually decide on the fall Justin Bieber outfit?
Well, I just looked at a picture of what Justin Bieber was wearing at the last fight and matched it. And unfortunately, everyone, I specifically said to our wardrobe guy, I want to make sure people don't think I'm dressing like I'm from Run DMC. And, of course, that's what everyone immediately thought, that I was dressed like Run DMC. But it turns out Justin Bieber dresses like the guy from Run DMC.
Right.
So there you have that.
You kept the same look on your face for the entire 3-4 minutes, which I was impressed by. Did you practice that in the mirror beforehand?
I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I was mostly trying not to laugh. I'll tell you a couple of interesting things. First of all, I'm back there virtually alone with Manny for quite some time. I mean, there was security back there, and there's the security is unusually tight. I mean, I don't know what they think might possibly happen, but I'm alone in the locker room with Manny. And, well, first of all, they inspected I had a bag as I came in, and in the bag was my Justin Bieber hat. And I didn't realize it. And Sal, I don't know if you know this, but they go through the bag, and they pull out the hat and a big soft pretzel. Who put the pretzel in my bag?
Oh, it wasn't part of the plan. I don't know.
And they're like, what? They started laughing. I was like, I don't know how that got in there. So there's a pretzel in the bag, and then I'm sitting there with Manny, and Manny is, he's like, how many minutes to the fight? And they're like, 20 minutes, and it's like 11 minutes, and he's kind of, jumping in place and shadow boxing and just kind of stretching and getting ready. And he says to me, I'm just trying to stay out of his way because this is a serious thing, and I don't want to distract him. He says, you have your Justin Bieber hat? And I was like, yeah. He said, can I see it? I was like, yeah. So I pull it out of the bag and show it to him, and he cracks up. And we're watching, kind of keeping an eye on the goings on the monitor because they have the broadcast happening in the dressing room, and he starts yelling, let's get ready to rumble. I mean, he's in a really good mood. He's, I expected him to be in a solemn, very serious mood, but he's jumping around and fooling around. He's like kind of punching the security guards. It seemed like he really was excited to fight, and it seemed like he enjoys it.
Right.
It's like if someone, imagine if you were about to make $60 million. Like, that's how giddy he was.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that was the problem with the fight. There was no urgency. Both guys had already been paid, and I thought they fought accordingly. I never felt like, especially in the last 5 rounds, as the fight was starting to slip away from Manny.
Yeah, but how does that differ from any fight you've ever seen? I mean,
Well, especially this one, though. They just, both of them just seemed kind of happy to be there. And it was very friendly, and it was very congenial, and it wasn't like a fight of the century where you hated each other. I want to take your title. I want to go down with a better legacy than you. It was just kind of like, hey, we did it. We're here. Hey, we're all going to make money. And the fact that you were in his entourage coming out kind of epitomizes that, right? If this is the biggest fight of his life, why are you there?
Oh, my God.
I think this is a very cynical way of looking. I mean, the idea that they didn't care about winning is one of your more preposterous notions.
No, you know what I mean. I'm not saying they didn't care about winning.
There's 100 million people in the Philippines that he's fighting for that are glued to his every move, and I really think the money is, of course, these guys get paid a lot of money, but I think that if neither one of those guys were being paid $1, they'd still desperately want to win the fight.
If you were about to host the Emmys for the first time, which you did, and at some point you have like your 3 or 4 most trusted people in the office, and that's it, and you're locking in, you're zoning into the event, would you have Manny Pacquiao in there?
Well, think of it the other way. Like, I think you have to think, would you have somebody who's there specifically for foolishness? And I can answer that and say, yes, Cousin Sal is there.
All right. I just wanted to make sure he was focused because, maybe this was the case for the De La Hoya Mayweather fight too, and some other ones that were alleged fight of the centuries to some degree. But I never felt like it was life or death for either guy, and that was my problem with the fight. I don't think the fans felt it either. Like, what was it like to be in the stands as everyone realized that these guys actually weren't going to go all out?
Let me just say this. It's weird when you watch it on TV. You're kind of you're like influenced by the judges' scorecards and whatever Lampley and the commentator is saying, and like, all right, that's how you're going to see the fight, and then that sucks. But it also sucks when you're at the fight and it's 90-10 Pacquiao. So when the guy sneezes, the place erupts. So
right,
you get like a feel of what the fight should be. Like we were sitting there, we thought it was closer, like based on that. And I don't know. I picked 116, 112 on SportsCenter, but did it really seem like he ran with the last 6 rounds? Like, you should have had that 3-3 after 6. And then he just blew him out?
I had it 3-2-1. There was one round where it was like nobody did anything. I don't even know how you score those.
But that's the thing. Like, 5 of the first 8 rounds, you're like, who wins those rounds? You can't really – and no one gives tied rounds. Like, they just don't. But it's nice to say you had a tie round, but is it going to be 2-1-4 after 7? Like, no one's going to score it like that.
Right. Well, I thought it was 3-2, and then that 6th round, whichever one was the weird round, could have gone to either guy. Mm-hmm. So it was like, all right, this is getting interesting. And then from there, it's just Floyd seemed to pull away.
Yeah, the idea that we even break boxing down by rounds is kind of, they shouldn't be given equal weight. It's like if you broke baseball games down by the inning. It's dumb. At the end of the game, you want to know who has the most point or most runs, or in this case, you want to know who beat the other guy. I just thought that some of the rounds that Manny won, he won more decisively than the rounds that Mayweather won.
So you thought it was 90-10 in the arena for Manny?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder how much all the domestic violence stuff over the last couple of weeks swung that. I do feel like Manny was going to be the fan favorite going into it, but by the time the fight actually happened, it was like Clubber Lang had come to life. And, even at the end when Floyd was standing on the ring, just kind of glaring at everybody. I mean, I can't remember. Sal, is he the number one villain that you can remember in your lifetime now for boxing?
I was saying that, and when we had to decide if we're going to bet on it, because we both like Floyd, but we're like, let's stay away, because this is as close to good versus evil as you get, I think, At least it's set up that way. And it really, I don't know, and looking down the road, it's nothing like that. We don't have like the Prince Naseem, we don't have like the Macho, you don't have the guys you can hate anymore. The Klitschko brothers, Vlad's been mowing down the competition for a decade and can't get a pay-per-view fight. So this meant a lot to boxing, and I feel bad that it ended this way. Almost maybe a third-round knockout would have been more impressive to everyone, even though I do think they both tried. So I don't know what the answer is, really.
One thing about you guys getting there super early is you avoided what was apparently the all-time logjam in the history of McCarran Airport with all the planes getting in. We got it on the way back.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it on the way back?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that weird celebrity tunnel that everybody goes in and out of, and then at the end of the fight, you're going through that tunnel, and it's basically like every A-list celebrity in the world is in that tunnel for 15 minutes. It was weird.
Like, there were people who weren't famous who entered that tunnel and came out famous. That's how many celebrities were in there.
Who were you near? What celebrities were near you as you were leaving?
I sat next to Dave Chappelle, and Rupert Murdoch and Bradley Cooper were sitting right in front of me. I thought Bradley was there with his grandpa.
And it was Rupert Murdoch?
Yeah, then I realized it was Rupert Murdoch.
Who else did you see? Was there anybody that was there that maybe we didn't see on TV? I mean, all the usuals were there, like Magic, Barkley, Denzel, all those guys.
You would have loved. So here's why you should have come to.
You would have been in heaven.
That 15-minute stretch at the end of the fight. First of all, we were ushered from our seat in the 12th round.
By Usher.
Yes, by Usher. That's all you need to know. No, but some guy. So it's the 12th round, and Jimmy was unaffected, but it was the rest of us for Jimmy's entourage, and he's like, "You got to get out now, or you're never going to get out of here." So we're like, all right. We follow him while trying to watch the 12th round, and we're led to this tunnel, and there's like 30 different ushers like this bringing celebrity groups through, and it's a logjam. It's like Robert De Niro and Nicki Minaj are like nose to nose trying to get through this tunnel, and they're screaming, and Michael Jordan's walking through, and John Voight is harassing him. Like you would have been in such heaven. Like that was the craziest part of all.
And they made these guys miss the 12th round.
Yeah.
That's weird. I wonder what the reason is for that.
Remember at the end of Rocky where you could barely hear the decision? Like right. Oh, man, I don't know who won it. Like, you really have to get close to the TV. Like, that's kind of how it was because they're pulling everyone out at the last minute.
Wow. So what time did you actually get out of there?
Well, it was quite a melee getting. There wasn't much of an exit plan. It was a little bit crazy leaving. I'm not sure what time it was, but it wasn't long after the fight.
So there was time to do stuff.
He signed a lot of autographs. It
was more photographs. Yeah.
Selfie.
And then there was time to do stuff.
Yeah, then we went to dinner afterwards.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
You missed the dinner. You missed it. We went with again another mistake on your part. I went with Larry Bird and Regan's girlfriend from Friday Night Lights.
you did not.
Yeah, we did.
You're making
They're
that
together
up.
now. Yeah.
You guys realize that I ended up staying in LA and going to like one of the best 8 Game 7s in the history of professional basketball.
Yeah,
right?
the Clippers.
Like, I'm not really like crying tears right now.
Let me just ask you right now. A decade from now,
yeah,
they're gonna ask us like, oh wow, you were at the sporting event with the greatest celebrity attraction ever, featuring the 2 most popular fighters of the century, and we'll say yes, and we'll say you were there too, Simmons, and you'll be like, no, I was at Game 7 Clippers Spurs, and then like, oh, is that the year the Clippers won the championship? Like, no, they got swept by Houston, who then got swept by Golden State, who got swept by the Cavaliers. But it was still a really big game. Like, this is round 1, Game 7. Who cares?
It's a solid point. I mean, it could have been Tim Duncan's last game ever.
Oh, wow, you won't want to miss that.
Oh, come on. It's like the 6th best player ever.
Best game ever. And the funny part is it won't.
You guys just don't like basketball.
It's not that we don't like basketball, and it's not even about the boxing. It's just that we know how much you love being around all these celebrities.
Yes.
Well,
It was
from
the event.
I do enjoy the comedy aspect. I definitely would have enjoyed De Niro and Nicki Minaj in a tunnel trapped next to each other.
Now I'm going to tell you something that's really going to make you wish you'd come.
Okay, because I'm still not there yet.
Okay, this is. I'm going to let you decide at the end whether you made a mistake or not. So, for those who aren't familiar, our mutual agent is a gentleman named James Baby Doll Dixon. Recently sold his company to William Morris Endeavor, a big agency, and he apparently we have no idea how much money he made, but it's a tremendous amount. Whatever the amount is, it's huge.
Sal has spent the last 4 months trying to find out the number and can't.
See, we turned on the heat. We turned the heat up in a big way on him in the hours leading up to the fight. On the flight over, in the car to the hotel, at the hotel, we were really working him very hard to find out how much he got, how much William Morris Endeavor paid him for this company. And not long after we get into the fight, I sit down, my son's sitting next to me, and who's sitting next to my son? But Ari Emanuel, the man who actually paid James Baby Doll Dixon for the company.
Oh, wow.
And now I wave Dixon over, I bring him over, and I start screaming at Ari. How much did you pay him for the thing? He's like, we have a non-disclosure agreement. I'm running him through the ringer. We have a non-disclosure contract. I said, I have a lot of contracts too. How much did you pay him for the thing? Baby Doll was dying of embarrassment.
See, that now I have real regrets.
So
Yeah. That
he insulted an Armenian Uber driver, not an Uber driver, driver.
Was he Joe?
There's a lot of good stuff you missed. Our friend Daniel claimed that he could have had sex with Minnie Driver or Julia Roberts back in the Letterman days. So you missed so much good stuff. But don't repeat that last thing I said.
Well, we're not recording this. So, was there blackjack?
There was. Yes, there was. There was blackjack.
That part wasn't that good.
Well, do you guys give me any leeway? Because it was my daughter's 10th birthday, and she took it very personally that I was going to
Well, you know what? You're no longer the sports guy. You're the kid's birthday party guy. That's what you have to call yourself.
That's harder to it's harder to pull off, and I don't have the URL yet.
Let me ask you a quick question, Bill. What did you do on your 10th birthday?
That's a great question. 1979? I don't know. I can't remember.
Exactly.
Can you guys remember?
Your daughter's memory of this event.
Yeah, but you know how it goes. You know how guilt trippy and just how they get.
Did you
Sal
take
will
her
never
to the
know because
game?
he had all sons.
Did you take her to the game?
I did not.
So wait a minute. So you with her? The game started at 5. You left for that game. What time? You start thinking about leaving for the game.
She was on her own for 3.5 hours. We spent the whole day together.
That's crazy.
We went to Catalina and ziplined. It was great.
Oh boy!
Made it back in time. It was a great day. I don't have a lot of regrets except for the Baby Doll Dixon.
What about the video you sent me and that I sent the comment I sent back?
Oh yeah, that was good. That was good. I still need to debate whether I'm putting that on YouTube or not.
Oh, I think you should definitely put that on YouTube.
So you stayed the night and you left in the morning?
Yeah.
And do you consider it felt like a genuine success over the, like, I read pieces where there were winners and losers from the fight, and basically everybody was a loser except for 3 people, and Jimmy Kimmel was one of the winners.
Me and the Burger King.
By the way, they found out, I just read this, they found out Fallon was in the Burger King costume.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Who found that out?
I don't know. We can't win.
You know, it's funny. It's kind of disheartening, really, for all the things that you do and all the things you work on. You know, you host the Emmys or the ESPYs or whatever, and you do weeks and months of prep, and then you get so much credit for walking behind someone with a hat on.
Dressed like Justin Bieber DMC. Do you think that was the most people that have ever seen you?
No, I don't.
How many
think
people
so.
watch the Emmys?
I've been on the Super Bowl broadcasts. I mean,
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How late in the pregame though?
I don't know. I mean, I've been on right before. I used to work at Fox Sports, so you know, in the old days.
Because I don't know exactly how many people watched that fight, but if like 4 million people bought it, but I don't know what the average of people in a room was.
Right.
It had to have been over 20 million.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing.
Are you including yourself? You watched, right?
I did. I actually, and Sal, you know this because you've seen all the Floyd fights. Floyd hits that point where the other guy kind of starts to lose the will to live around like the 7th, 8th round, and it just happened. And Manny he tried everything he could try, and it just wasn't happening. And
he's too slick, and if Manny's not going to get points for glancing Floyd while he's backtracking, it's just not going to happen. It's just, too slick.
I like the excuse though after that that his shoulder hurt and they wouldn't give him a shot.
Well, that's the only shot that there's a rematch, right? How much they play up the shoulder injury.
Yeah, because his shoulder seemed fine. I'd never heard anything about the shoulder.
He was still
I don't know. How did his shoulder look in the dressing room, Jimmy?
It was rounded. It looked like the other one.
When you were walking out of the tunnel with him, what was like the sound like? What did it feel like to do that?
That was crazy. I mean, it was really like I felt like I was being devoured by a dragon. It was so loud, and then it got so much louder as soon as we got into the arena. But it was pretty crazy because everyone's hanging over the side and screaming and going nuts, and then like reacting to the fact that I'm there, which I think they were surprised by. But it was pretty crazy. And I was trying to hang back because I thought, I was like, Freddie Roach should be behind him, and it just didn't seem like right that I'd be right there on camera. And at a certain point, Manny stopped. We stopped marching out. He said something to somebody, and then the person said, "Hey, he wants you right behind him."
Wow! And then there was like a selfie. There was a whole stop for a selfie that it seemed like he wanted you in the selfie.
Well, I didn't. Freddie took that selfie, so I really didn't know what was going on at that point.
So you love Manny after this?
I loved him beforehand, and I got to tell you something. You talk to all those security guys, which I was backstage, and boy, do they all love Manny and his camp, and they hate Floyd and his camp. Every single one of them, every cop back there, every security guy. I mean, they really, the people rooting for Manny the most were the people in the security jackets backstage.
So you think Uncle Frank would have had some thoughts?
Undoubtedly.
He would have. Sal, do Uncle Frank telling everybody why he's rooting for Manny.
Floyd is a creep. He's nothing like the cops I grew up with back in New York, and he's a creep. Tell them to keep walking. I don't know what he said. What would he say?
He would say he was a creep. Yeah.
He would call him a repeated creep. Oh well. All right. Well, this. I don't know. I still don't regret missing Game 7. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Was it just the ball busting that went on alone? You missed so very much on this trip.
Yeah, but I was probably not being there. I was probably the number one target of the ball busting.
No. We barely mentioned you.
That's even worse. That makes me feel worse.
Baby doll, here's something you're going to miss. We decided who Baby dolls our agents pallbearers are going to be. so, and you didn't make the cut because you weren't there.
Really?
I didn't make it either. It's Jimmy, Jon Stewart, Colbert, Carson Daly, Baby's brother, and then there's a 6th spot open. We're thinking of doing a reality show.
Carson Daly?
Yeah.
How did Carson Daly get in there?
Carson's his favorite. You don't realize that, but he's
That's
his
just because
number
of golf.
favorite.
That's not a real reason. It's just because he likes playing golf with them.
No, he loves everything about him.
Did Corolla not make it because for all the obvious reasons?
Corolla has a gig that night.
He wouldn't show up.
Corolla has a Mangria appearance scheduled on the day Dixon passes away.
And what was the reason Corolla had for not going?
He has to read
fight?
his book on tape.
It's the funniest reason ever.
That's really the reason?
Yeah.
He had to read his book on tape?
He couldn't come because he has to read aloud.
He had to learn to read and then read the book on tape. The whole process.
Hey, last thing since you're here, Kimmel. You have shows. You have 4 shows this week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Letterman had that New York Times interview. It was really enlightening. And you and I grew up loving Letterman, and I would put us in the top percentile of people that have nerded out over him and knew a ton about him and all that stuff. What was like the number one thing you learned from that piece, other than the fact that you and Jimmy Fallon ruined his will to continue doing the show, and the blood's
number
on
one
your hands?
thing, I think the thing that I thought was most notable, and the thing that seems to be getting the least attention, is that he is open to continuing to be on television after he retires from the show. That's shocking.
The Jane Pauley analogy, you mean?
Yeah, I think I would have thought he'd pull a Johnny Carson and we'd never hear from him again.
The way that Jane Pauley thing was said was like, to him, it almost seemed like, now that's a good way for the next stage of my career to go. I see Jane Pauley. I could do that. Like, it did make me think his wheels were turning. Now I don't know what to expect. I'm with you. I thought we'd never see him again.
I read that and I laughed. I thought he was kidding. You think he's serious? Dead serious about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think Jane Pauley better watch out.
Well, the one thing with him, I can't see him on cable for whatever reason. He's just so old school. I just see him like feeling if he wasn't on NBC, ABC, or CBS, then it wouldn't be worth doing.
Yeah, you're probably right. But who knows?
I don't know what that leaves.
PBS, I could see him on, something like that.
Yeah, do you think he would do like 1-hour interview shows?
I don't know. I was shocked that he would do anything.
Yeah, me too. He's made a lot of money.
Yeah, he's made hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Have you corresponded with him as his end date gets near?
Well, I mean, does setting my DVR to tape his shows count as corresponding? If so, yes, we speak nightly.
No, but you're prone to send letters and long emails and things like that. Have you done that?
No, I figure I'll leave him alone.
It's hard to believe. It's coming up. It's not a lot of fanfare either, it feels like. It feels like he's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, you know what it means, and I know to younger guys doesn't mean a whole lot, but you have to remember something is here's how it goes. First, Johnny retires, then Dave retires, and next is death.
Yeah, pretty much. Sal, anything to add?
No, just that if it's announced in the next few days that you're going to be in Hedo Turkoglu's entourage for Game 3, we're not going. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
I would probably everyone in that entourage would be dressed like Jimmy was on Saturday night. I'm guessing. And Jimmy, I've made Sal bet multiple hockey bets, right? Like he's got hockey action everywhere.
Uh-huh.
You aware of this?
What about it?
He just has a lot of hockey bets.
I just tell him to let me know if we won or how much we owe at the end of the season.
That's not true. You're watching.
Yeah.
Who do you guys have the bulk of the money on?
Well, we've done really well, but our big bet is a Tampa Bay Lightning's Blackhawks Stanley Cup Finals, which is looking really good right now.
Oh.
The Cubs might care about hockey yet. You might care about hockey yet. All right, guys, go do your show. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Jimmy, congratulations. I thought that was a 10 out of 10 for how it could have gone. It was really good. I enjoyed it. I'm sorry I missed it. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Good job by you.
Good job by you. All right, another guy who was in Vegas from Grantland.com, a website that I happen to be involved with. Bryan Curtis, one of the best. How are you?
Good, Bill. How are you?
Did the fight live up to your expectations? Did it live up to your weirdness expectations? Were you glad you went? Where do you stand after 48 hours?
I think the best way to say it is the event lived up to my expectations, even if the fight didn't quite, because just being in the arena, hearing the weird energy of that whole place, which is a really small, kind of cool arena to watch a fight like that in, that definitely lived up to expectations, absolutely.
Yeah, it is something else to be in there in person. Like the first time, you're always going to remember your first time you went to a big Vegas fight, I feel like. I think
absolutely.
I had Lennox Lewis versus Rockman, but I was way in the nosebleeds. And then the first time I had decent seats was the Mayweather-Ricky Hatton fight. For you, I mean, I don't know if this was luck of the draw or they were huge fans of yours or what was going on, but you had great seats, right?
It was crazy. Yeah, it was on the floor. I mean, I think the weirdest moment of the night was I heard this commotion behind me, and I turned around, and Magic Johnson and Jesse Jackson were being seated 2 rows behind me.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's less a reflection on me than just how insane that ticket was. Like, Magic got crappy seats for Magic, like he was kind of like off the floor and in the bottom of the riser section. And
how many writers were that close to the ring? Was that? I mean, they were spread out a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean a whole bunch. 50, maybe more.
Yeah.
Hard
so
when you're head count.
When you're watching that close, are you scoring the fight? Like, are you looking around? Because the piece that you wrote, which was excellent for us, which went up today actually on Greatland, was about really the whole weekend and the scope of it, and some of the media stuff, and a whole bunch of other things. So, what are you watching as the fight's happening?
Trying to score the fight and trying to see stuff that you can't see on TV. Trying to look into the corners as much as I can, and trying to just listen to people in the arena. Because it's always, to me, like one thing you miss on TV is you miss stuff in the crowd. And right. I thought the crowd in this fight was incredibly important. One, have you ever seen a neutral site sporting event that was like 95-5 one way?
Right.
I mean, that was crazy, right? And I think it had actually a huge impact, because you heard Floyd after the fight say that the reason his dad was yelling at him in the corner was because his dad either mistakenly thought Manny was winning the fight because of the way the crowd was reacting, or that the judges thought Manny was winning the fight because of the way the crowd was reacting.
Yeah,
and Manny after the fight said the opposite, right? He said he thought he was comfortably ahead, and I sort of wondered if he, got put to sleep by the crowd as well.
Yeah, because on TV, Floyd clearly won. But we just had Jimmy and Sal were just on, and they were saying, like, it was so hard to tell who was winning because the crowd was reacting to every single thing Manny did and not selling. Almost it turns into wrestling where the crowd's selling one guy and not selling the other guy. The only time I can remember, I mean, I'm sure there are other times, but the most famous example I can remember of the crowd actually swinging a close fight was Hagler-Leonard. I do feel like the crowd, the way they reacted to all the Leonard everything, actually played a difference in the decision. I think in this case it was so clear who won, it wasn't going to play that big of a difference. But at the same time, so you're there and you're thinking, wow, this is tighter than I thought. Manny's doing okay, and you're not even seeing how one-sided it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think I wrote this, it occurred to me in the 8th round, really. Because Manny wins the 4th, right? That's when he lands that huge left.
Yeah,
which is an exciting moment, because that's like, I think with this fight, basically everybody, if they thought about it long enough, thought Floyd's just gonna outbox him and win the fight, right? And he's gonna win. Yeah. He's gonna win a decision. That was your standard prediction, right? And so you needed those moments where you could imagine anything was possible. We could imagine Manny winning, and I think that shot in the 4th, and then he won the 6th on all 3 cards.
Yep.
And he was like up, he was down 4 rounds to 2 at that point. But you sort of imagine. And then Floyd came out, and he won the 7th, and he won the 8th, again on all 3 cards, as it turned out. And to me, that was the moment where it was like, okay, this is over. There's just no chance. And Manny was also really visibly running out of gas at that point, and wasn't really being aggressive anymore. He was kind of walking around, but he wasn't throwing a lot of punches. And that's when I tuned out, even with the crowd. And you know what? The crowd shut up in the 7th and 8th. I think that's when I started hearing the Floyd hecklers in the audience who were just heckling Manny, because everything was silent and you could make out exactly what they were saying.
Yeah, Floyd, Sal and I just talked about this. Floyd has a way, this is how his career has gone, of just sucking the life out of his opponent and all the people rooting for that opponent by the 8th, 9th round, where it's almost like it's a chess match and the opponent just runs out of pieces and he's like, I just got pawns. I don't know what else to do. And then there's 4 more rounds to go. And you could feel that in the moment. The thing is, Jimmy and Sal disagreed with me, and I still think I'm right on this. I don't feel like there was the right amount of urgency from Manny, and I think that's because of how much money they were both guaranteed. I think this just happens in boxing sometimes. There felt like it just felt a little happy to be there-ish for Manny's side, and from Floyd's side, I don't think he ever doubted for a second that he was much better than Manny and that he was going to beat him. And it just felt like for lack of a better word, a friendly fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree with you. You don't want to read into the body language stuff too much, but when a guy comes out just smiling and, totally, as you say, happy to be there, when he thanked Floyd at the weigh-in, which was just one of the more bizarre moments I've ever seen. And to me, even after the fight, he's lost. It was not a close fight at all. He's walking back, and he's, huge smile on his face, high-fiving fans. And I'm just kind of like, to me, Manny has entered this phase where he just wants to receive love, and also give love. And that's just kind of what he seemed, what he likes to do. And as long as, to me, he may have thought, hey, the crowd loved me tonight, so mission accomplished, right? I came out, got huge cheers, gave it a go. And that's enough. But no, I completely agree. Well, I did not see that urgency at all.
You compare it to the last Marquez fight, which those guys had, a really good rivalry. I don't think there was a lot of love lost, as they'd say. Or did I even say that right? I don't even know. But you know what I mean.
I think so.
And then Marquez comes out. He's just cartoonishly enhanced, shall we say. And Manny's life is in danger with this guy, how bulked up the other guy is. And it was not smiling, hey, Jimmy Kimmel being my entourage, Manny, that night. That was, I'm in a real fight, and, my life is at risk. And as it turned out, he got knocked out. This one really felt to me like a glorified exhibition. And in the 4th round, Manny got the great left in. There were a couple flurries, but I never felt like either guy was in any danger. And I wonder if Floyd's just a genius who knows how to just pick his opponents perfectly and knows exactly who to pick and at what point in their career to pick them, and that's just how it goes with him. He's going to leave boxing with the most brain cells any champion has ever left boxing with, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, it also knows how to adjust to them over the course of a fight, right? Because he was clearly frustrated at the end of the 4th. I'm sure this is on TV, but he threw his hands down and screamed at the end of that round because he knew he made a mistake. And, basically, again, Manny wins the 6th, but he doesn't really make a big mistake after that. And, that I just like 8th, 9th round, we've seen this fight before, right? Yeah. We've seen this. You just get this familiarity. Like, I've seen this. I know exactly what's going to happen. And sure enough, it did.
Well, a couple things were going on these last couple weeks that had to do with this fight that were in your wheelhouse. I think you're the best media writer of anyone in the country for big picture media stuff and how they relate, in your case, mostly to sports, but then also just the general kind of you sniff out where angles are going, what motivations are, agendas, things like that. And the domestic violence stuff that was really going for 2-3 months here with Floyd, and he was slowly turning into the biggest sports villain of this generation. And then it kept cresting, and it kept cresting, and it kept cresting, and it kept going up a level. And then just when you think like, man, there is no skin left on this bone, people have picked it apart every which way they can, then he denies Beetle and Rachel Nichols in what had to have been one of the most tone-deaf moments in sports history. What was the mood like in Vegas after that happened?
Yeah, that's totally incredible. For one thing, every media person who covered the fight was standing in line for credentials when they found out that Beetle and Nichols had been denied credentials, which is a weird thing to say the least. Credential window opened at 9:00. About 20 minutes later, while everybody's stuck in line, they tweet out that they're not going to cover the fight, that they've been told they can't cover the fight. And it was just complete shock. among media people, because I think, for one thing, you have a lot of people at a fight like this, right, who don't cover a lot of boxing, and aren't used to being jerked around like that. And then you have a boxing press that gets jerked around all the time, but isn't, it goes, oh, wow, not only did they do it in the most tone-deaf way possible, they did it to two high-profile TV people, right? This isn't, some print person where he gets a couple, 20 people on Twitter get mad and everybody forgets about it. These people are on television,
Yeah.
who usually, get what they want at events like this. So it was incredible. I was also just in Department of completely suspicious timing, I was reminded of at the Super Bowl when we completely run out of things to talk about, and Marshawn Lynch puts on his show, and all of a sudden there's programming for 3 days.
So you think maybe a little bit intentional, the timing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but look, so on that morning there was nothing else to talk about, right? And then all of a sudden we had hours and hours of Twitter outrage, built up the character again. I'm not saying that's why they did it, but if for whatever reason it absolutely served the purpose of building the villain character and hyping up the fight even more.
Well, it's not like people could hate Floyd anymore. It wasn't like he wasn't risking anything at that point. Why not? It reminded me a little of, look, you know me, I love conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I can't hide how I feel. The whole Deflategate thing, when you look back at how that played out, the day after the Colts-Patriots game, heading into this 2-week Super Bowl stretch where Goodell and Ray Rice and domestic violence and Greg Hardy and all these really negative NFL themes were about to take center stage for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden we have Deflategate literally happen right as this whole thing's starting, and nobody talks about anything else other than Deflategate for that first week. Am I wrong to think that there's a little conspiracy theory potential there?
Yeah, well, remember when Deflategate ran out of gas, that's when Marshawn Gate began. It was literally it was within a 24-hour period. And then, we were having deep conversations about the media and sports and great visuals and all that kind of stuff. No, I don't know if it's conspiracy or not, but it's amazing timing. And like I said, I think Deflategate like this only enhances the villainy. Look, we're talking about completely different kinds of villainy here, right? There's not comparing Bill Belichick and Floyd Mayweather at all, but it does it does enhance the storyline that has already comes with the event, for sure.
So let's say this entire Mayweather-Pacquiao thing happens in 2008, before Twitter, before everybody really got their A game going with sharing information and finding out information and just all the stuff that helps us follow sports maybe a little too closely sometimes in 2015. How does this fight unfold in 2008 before all the stuff we have now?
The media stuff or the fight itself?
The media stuff.
With Nichols and Beadle?
Just everything. All the Floyd domestic violence stuff, all of it.
Yeah, I think there would have been a lot. I think there would have been a lot less coverage of the domestic violence stuff. Not because the people in the media were any, I just think this stuff gets much more, as you say, it's passed around on Twitter much more efficiently now,
Yeah.
Somebody can decide to make a cause of it. And, before, somebody makes a cause of it, and that's great. And people nod and say, I'm glad you brought this up, but it doesn't get to it's not everywhere. And, you look now, it's everywhere, and it becomes the story, right? It overshadows the boxing and the sports. And I think that's totally different now than it would have been 5 years ago.
Yeah, the extremes are so high and so low now. And it's almost like there's no in between and there's no nuances. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing for this Floyd thing, but it's just everything is hysterical one way or the other. And this Floyd thing is the perfect storm of that because, one of the few things I think all of us can agree on is, hey, domestic violence, terrible. There's no counter argument to take on that. And it just seemed like it was so hellacious leading up to the 6 week. I mean, think about some of the other guys that we've followed in sports over the years. Like, think about Mike Tyson coming out of jail for rape and then has two huge big money fights that everybody's just fired up about. I mean, I'm not defending that extreme, but it's fascinating to me how much things have changed in 20 years,
Totally. And you mentioned like the highs and the lows, and the caricature is more pronounced now, which I totally agree with. But I also think what this new world allows us to do is remind people of the details. of what happened, like Louisa Thomas's piece on Granlund last week. When you go through, and I think this probably didn't happen with Tyson, but it would now if he were to come back now, is you would, get through all the court testimony of that case and find out exactly what he was accused of and exactly what he was convicted of, and put those details in front of people's faces so it's not an abstraction, It's not like, he was, he did X, Y, Z and just named the crime. No. Here's what happened. Here's the testimony. Here is the face of the person involved. And I think that's, that helps us probably understand these issues a lot better than it would back when.
Some people, there seemed like there was a little, I don't want to say pushback, but there were some people and even some celebrities and a couple of media people who seemed like they kind of drifted into, all right, we get it. We all hate domestic violence. Can we watch the fight now? Can we just concentrate on how great Floyd is? And then that led to its own separate backlash. The thing that I guess, I don't know if it worried me, but it just seems like everything gets a backlash now unless you agree with the majority opinion. Did you feel that at all?
Yeah, well, I think what you're describing is like the oldest sports fan thing in the world, right? Which is, in theory, we think all these issues are important. We want to know everything about them. We want to hold the perpetrators accountable. And then, one of the reasons we like sports is that we can forget about all that stuff for 3 hours or 2 hours. And it's the war inside every sports fan, because and look, I don't think that's right. I'm not endorsing it, but, part of the reason people like sports is they don't think about that stuff. And so when they get, so somebody, pops up on Twitter or whoever and says, oh, why are we talking about this? Why can't we have a boxing match? And to me, that's just like, that's the war inside everybody's head, And also now we have different writers, right? I think part of the tension of this comes, people say, well, why aren't the boxing writers ever covering this stuff? And a lot of times they are, but then they have to write a fight story, and they're not covering it in that kind of detail in a fight story, right? And again, that's just like, it's these two, things, but there are other people who are covering nothing but, and good for them, nothing but, Floyd's past and stuff like that. So it's just also that there's this tension between different forums, I think, and like you said, people do, they want to, sports fans, I think they'll take more of this now than ever. They'll, read these stories and process it and try to get in their brain and say, I'm going to watch the fight. I admire Floyd as a boxer, but ... Here are all the things that he did. But I also think that they just, sometimes they shut off and they lash out.
Yeah, I tried to write about this on Friday a little bit about, that I was still going to watch the fight. And I think the difference with this fight and part of the reason we had a little bit of a chasm was because I think people who have followed boxing and watched all these different fights and just been in that world this entire time, so used to having bad people in that world and so used to all the different morality issues that come with boxing and all the people in it and how many guys have been left broke and brain damaged and just not the same, and just, we already felt horrible about even following boxing and liking it. So this Floyd thing wasn't exactly a tipping point for anybody who's been watching boxing for 40, 50, 60 years. But I think when you have these quote-unquote fight of a lifetimes and people kind of drift in and out of the sport, they're horrified by what they see. So I guess my point is I should be more horrified, but I'm so used to it at this point. Doesn't that sound terrible? Like, this is the sport that gave us Mike Tyson. It's the sport that gave us Tony Ayala and all. Just some of the worst people we've ever had in sports, and I don't know. I don't know how to feel.
There's a kind of separate but related question. I wrote a story about this last year because Adonis Stevenson was fighting last year, and which is how long? Let's say Adonis Stevenson has committed some really horrific crimes, been in jail, and how long does the network or the newspaper writer, bound to bring them up if they don't do anything else, right? Yeah. At some level, does it ever become, okay, the person has, we believe in, the person that should have another chance in society. And, how long do you bring them up? And I think these are just a tension within every sports fan and also within every piece when somebody sits down to write a piece.
Is this going forward now, domestic violence in sports and the way this stuff's covered? Are we going to look back at the Ray Rice elevator incident and then the video that came out as one of the most massive tipping points that we can remember socially with sports, where that every time now anybody has a domestic violence anything, that's just going to be front and center to whatever sports story is happening?
Absolutely. And I think you see it with the Greg Hardy thing, not only the use of details, again, where we're talking about where details, not just the abstraction, but the details of the case are circulated. And, and then, of course, you have Roger Goodell, who's very sensitive to the press, shall we say, given what's happened to him over the last year. And so he's going to, punish Hardy as much as he can. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it'll be a total tipping point.
I feel like the media is getting smarter and a little more sophisticated with how they can pick stuff apart. Why aren't the people that we're picking apart, why aren't they more sophisticated? Like, how can somebody like Roger Goodell be as tone deaf as he's been the last couple of years? Why isn't he getting better at this?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think his problem is that he's trying to do what he's trying to do is beyond one person, and, trying to set the appropriate punishment for all manners of things, some of which are actual crimes, some of which are just, small bore stuff, some of which are failed drug tests, and he's trying to do it all himself. And it's just, there's no way one person can do that. I don't believe if P. Rozelle came back to life, or if you had this ideal commissioner that you and I created in a lab, I don't believe any one person could do that, right? I think it needs, people, it needs, push-pull, it needs the involvement of the union, it needs all kinds of things. And I just think he's way, way, way beyond him.
Well, I also think that, I would say Adam Silver has almost as tough of a job. And I think the difference between those guys is that Adam Silver hasn't done anything to lose our trust in his authority. So if the NBA equivalent of Greg Hardy happened and Adam said, I'm suspending this guy for 50 games, all of us would be like, cool, good job, good work. But Goodell suspends Greg Hardy for 10 games, and my first reaction wasn't good work, that was the right thing to do. It was, oh man, here we go again. Here's Goodell making up some arbitrary suspension that he didn't clear with the players union, who's now upset. They're going to fight it, and somehow Greg Hardy is going to become a quote-unquote victim in this whole thing just because over and over again Goodell has just done stuff that went against the CBA and didn't really seem to care. It's like he's operating in some other world where all these agreements that these guys made legally between the league and the players union don't exist. And I think that's the issue. It's like he's lost my trust. I don't believe in his authority anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, by the way, there's an actual test case for this, which is Jeffrey Taylor in the NBA. Jeffrey Taylor was, I believe, was punished last, I want to say September, right?
Oh, yeah, for domestic violence, yeah.
Yeah, he was, and he got additional games beyond what the CBA called for. There's an argument about whether, about how the CBA in that case is interpreted. But Silver gave him, I think would be considered a pretty harsh punishment. And what have you heard about that after?
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Well, Adam bought himself, I would say, 2 to 3 years with how well he handled the Clippers thing. He'd have to have multiple mess ups of a high scale order before people started wondering if he knew what he was doing. Whereas Goodell, pretty much from the moment he took over, when he destroyed the Spygate tapes, I don't think he's had 2 uninterrupted years where people haven't gone, what's going on? You're in Texas, the heart of football, basically. Anyone who says football is going to die or go away or whatever you're thinking, I can tell you one place that's not going away is Texas. Everybody's going to be fine with football there forever and ever. Dallas just has decided to get weirder and weirder. They got Greg Hardy. They kept Des Bryant. And then they got, who was the guy in the second round that fell 40 spots?
Gregory.
Yeah, Randy Gregory. They took him. Like,
yeah.
What are people thinking? Like, because people love football there more than anything, but at the same time, like, he's building the team from Con Air. Like, at some point, you got to take a pause, right?
People are pretty mad about Hardy. I'd say not so much about Des and not so much about Gregory, which is just Gregory's drug stuff, right? And Des basically had one instance where he hit his mom, I believe. And other than that, had a bunch of silly stuff like was wearing baggy pants at the mall and stuff like that. Which
Right.
Not a crime last time I checked. But the Hardy thing has been really, really big, and people are really, really mad. And I think, on sports radio, I think it really surprised the Cowboys. I mean, they did this weird thing where they didn't have a press conference to introduce him because they just didn't want to deal with it, which is pretty cowardly. Like, if you think the guy should play for you and you think he should get another chance and you feel, that he's learned something, okay, but you literally won't bring him out in front of the media to get questioned or let them question you. That's pretty amazing.
This has to be one of the weirdest stretches in the history of Dallas sports, right? They trade for Hamilton, who had every Rangers fan was packing his bags when he left. Rondo didn't even get a playoff share, and that has to be – Odom was pretty bad, but I think the way the Rondo thing played out was so much worse for the Mavericks because they actually lost assets, and not to mention got killed in the playoffs. And then the Cowboys are getting wonky. Maybe Dallas is the sports capital of dysfunction in a very dysfunctional sports year. I don't know. How
I would also remind you of Ron Washington's mysterious disappearance last year after leading the franchise to its first 2 World Series in its history.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Still almost completely unexplained anywhere in the official media.
Oh, there was no story?
Well, he said, that he had had an affair and that he needed to go patch things up with his wife. That was the reason he left his dream job. So
wow.
That's the story that's out there. But as far as I know, again, on message board channels, that's where it was left. See, really
what a year.
Jason Garrett. If Jason Garrett left the Cowboys like that, I mean, that's the city would have gone to. The tornado sirens would have been going off, and it would just been this amazing. But he just left, and that was that.
Anything happen with the Dallas Stars that I didn't know about?
I probably just haven't been paying attention. I just don't follow hockey closely enough.
Oh man, keep an eye on Tyler Sagan. Early curfew for him. Keep him out. Well, one of the weirdest these last couple weeks were. I thought you did a good job of what you wrote. That one sentence where you're basically like, if this was the fight of the century, it definitely left more people feeling worse afterwards than any fight of the century has. I don't know anybody who was happy with that fight or anything about it. Nobody feels good. Almost like you have to take a shower afterwards. That's kind of how I feel, right?
Yeah, and they brought the fighters. They actually did the press conferences in the arena. They took down the ropes, put the table in the ring, and the fighters did the press conferences in there, which is really funny. Just a strange visual, But so Manny comes out, and we start hearing about the shoulder, which is disappointing. Either A, you don't believe it, or B, you wish that they just had to fight later. If it really was that bad, maybe you should have just postponed it.
Yeah.
And then Mayweather comes out, and of course we're treated, to the rant about how much money he made and Heyman's, business acumen. And then he had this incredible press rant where he's like, I'm going to read all the stories you guys write tomorrow. Everyone, I have nothing to do tomorrow, so I'm just going to be reading your stories that you write tonight. Can you imagine Tom Brady in the locker room after the Super Bowl yelling at all the Boston writers that he was going to be reading what they wrote tomorrow and it better be good? It was just remarkable. I remember just sitting in the stands, and it's just like I was just totally depressed. This is like there's just nothing. There's nothing joyous about this. There's nothing even really that interesting at this point. It's just everything that's being said on the stage is depressing.
Well, I don't know if we have to make it up with you to send you on a better sports trip, or I don't know if we should be congratulating ourselves for sending you on the best possible sports trip. I don't know. This is kind of weirdly perfect for the stuff you like to cover. It was certainly a memorable weekend, I would say, right? Let's
absolutely. Please don't interpret any of this as me whining that I was there. It was
I wasn't
wildly interesting.
I feel like I want to send you to just a normal feel-good sporting event next. Come up with something. Just something that's nice and black and white and easy, and just go and crowd cheers, and there's no morality, and it's just a fun sporting event. Maybe that'll be
an email this afternoon to be the 5 happiest sporting events in America.
Maybe like I'll have to think about this.
the morally uncomplicated tour of
maybe
American sports.
We send you somewhere serene, like some tennis tournament. Just like Federer winning like some Swiss tournament or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
British Open, that seems like it's fairly controversy-free. Well, it's Tiger. No, maybe not. We'll keep thinking.
Well, Tiger just broke up with his girlfriend, so I'm prepared for anything on that front. God only knows what the next few days could bring us. It's been that kind of year. Bryan Curtis, fantastic job for us. Love having you on the site. Loved reading your stuff in Vegas, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
That's it for the BS Report. We're coming back tomorrow. We're going to have Chuck Klosterman on because we have to catch up with him on a bunch of stuff. And then the Bill Don't Lie podcast, which is usually Mondays, NBA, we are pushing that to the middle of the week. So please don't think I forgot about Bill Don't Lie or I'm trying to disenfranchise you subscribers. It's not that way. I actually there's real reasons for this. It'll come out. You'll understand by midweek. Why I staggered it a certain way. Also, we have a Grantland basketball hour on Thursday night on ESPN because there are no games because some series ended up early. So make sure you DVR that. We're excited for that show as well. Talk to you soon on the BS Report and on Build Online.
Target % off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.